Welcome to Sushi Anything, the YouTube channel where we teach you how easy it is to make delicious sushi right at home. But when you're making sushi, everything that you do comes down to one thing, and that's right, the rice, baby. It all comes down to this one bag here. So what we're gonna need in today's video is we're going to need sushi rice, which starts off with some nice short grain rice. We're gonna get into the rice in just a second, but the last couple things that we're gonna need is some rice vinegar. Now you probably have regular white distilled vinegar at your house. Don't use it. Trust me, go out and get a bottle like this. This little bottle will last you a long time. We're gonna need a little bit of salt and we're gonna need a little bit of sugar. You don't need this by any means, but this is kombu. Kombu is an edible kelp, and what this does is we take a little piece of this when we're making our sushi rice vinegar, and this gives it a little bit of a fishy flavor. Now we're gonna get into all this stuff later on. Sushi rice is pretty much always going to be a short grain rice, and there's a reason for that. If you're used to cooking rice at home, the most popular type of rice is typically a long grain rice. The thing about sushi rice is it uses a short grain rice, and there's a very good reason. Short grain rice has more starch, and that starch helps keep it stuck together. So the first thing we need to do is we need to grab ourselves a pot with a lid. Now we're not gonna use the lid just yet because we have to rinse our rice. Now you're probably thinking, why do you have to rinse the rice? Is it just dirty? Are you trying to make sure there's no bugs or anything on it, so maybe it's not clean? So I just told you that short grain rice has a lot of starch. Now that's important to know because that's what holds it together, but there is so much starch in short grain rice that you actually have to rinse off the excess starch. If you don't, then what will happen is all that starch will stay in the water, and instead of having nice defined rice that just kind of sticks together on its own, you're gonna have kind of this soupy mess that's just kind of like gel and congeal together. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get exactly 1 cup of rice. It's level, and that's very important because when you're making sushi, you need to know exactly how much rice you have in there, because if you don't know how much rice you have in there, you'll never know how much water to add later on. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come over to my sink, and I'm just going to give it some water, and I'm just gonna start mixing it around. And you'll notice right away that this water is gonna start to turn very cloudy. All right, so you can see right now inside there, it is almost white. Like you could barely see my fingers through there. Typically, I will rinse the rice about 2 to 3 times and then call it quits. Now there's 2 ways you can drain the excess water from your rice. You can go get a little fine metal sieve and pour it through there, or if you have yourself a lid for your pot, just kind of offset the lid from the top and you'll be able to pour it out. All right, so I'm just completing my 3rd rinse now. The water's looking a lot more clear. I can stick my fingers in there and I can pretty much clearly see them through there. We don't want to rinse this stuff for too long. If we rinse it for too long, then you're gonna end up having the rice absorb some water, which is bad. Remember in the beginning, I said you wanna have equal parts rice and water. If all of a sudden you let your rice sit for too long, you're gonna absorb a lot more water and it's gonna throw off that water to rice balance. So there we go, we've got the rice in the pot. We drained as much water as we can, and now it is time to add in our water. Now nothing goes in with this rice other than the rice and our cup of water. Now I'm gonna use the same cup that I used to measure the rice to fill it with water. That way I now have equal parts. And it is now on our burner here on high. Now this next part might sound a little bit hard to remember, but it's actually very simple. What you do is you wait for the edges of the pot to start coming to a boil. What's gonna happen is the pot's gonna start to boil first around the edges, and once it starts to get a nice little vigorous bubble going on there, it's gonna be time to turn the heat as low as it can go. Now, if you've ever used a rice cooker that cooks your rice automatically, they have little steam release mechanisms that do it automatically. Basically, achieve the same effect doing it at home with a little towel. So right now you can see the edges of our water are starting to bubble and boil, which means it is now up to temp. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn this flame on here down as low as it'll go. And we're going to take our towel, and technically you could kind of wrap the lid in the towel like this and then put it on top. And like I said, you want to make sure that all of your towel is on top here. You don't want it hanging over the edges, or else you could end up burning your towel. Very important step. When we do this part here, we need to set a timer. Okay, Google, set a timer for 10 minutes. What we're gonna do is while this rice is cooking, I got my bowl out. This is a hingiri. This is a traditional bamboo or wooden bowl. The purpose of this bowl, or any bowl that you guys want to have, is to make sure that it is cooled as soon as it's done. Because once our 2 timers are done, the rice is done, we don't want it to cook anymore. What we're gonna be doing now is making our sushi vinegar. And I can already tell there are gonna be people that hear sushi vinegar and be like, nope, I do not want it. I am not a fan of vinegar. I hate that flavor. This is not the vinegar you're thinking of. It's rice vinegar, which already has a totally different taste than distilled vinegar. Vinegar is very vinegary, it's tangy, but that's why we also add a bit of salt and a bit of sugar. So really, instead of just having a vinegar flavor, you've got the tang from the vinegar with the saltiness of the salt and the sweet from the sugar. And it creates this trifecta of flavors that just gives a light, subtle hint to the rice. And what that really helps it do is really draw out the flavors of what you put in the sushi roll. Now, the way I always remember how to make this vinegar is very simple. It's the 1-2-4 method. We take 1 teaspoon of salt. So what I'm gonna do is go in there, 1 teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of sugar, 1, 2, and 4 tablespoons of rice vinegar. Now, I will tell you, this amount that I'm making right here probably could have been cut in half because we're only doing 1 cup of rice. This is typically how much I put on when I'm making 2 cups of rice. This stuff also stores very well. You can store it in your fridge probably for a few weeks with no issue, maybe even longer. I mean, everything in here is basically a preservative. It's gonna start off very cloudy. It's gonna look cloudy, and you can tell when it's fully mixed together because this will go from the cloudy transparency that it is now. You can see it's cloudy right now. This is almost completely mixed together now. We can see that it's basically gone clear. It'll clear up a little bit more as the last few crystals dissolve in there, but it is see-through again. The last step I'm gonna do is take our kombu. This is a little piece of kelp. Again, you don't need this, but what this offers is a fishy flavor. Sushi doesn't mean fish. A lot of people just associate sushi with raw fish, including me. Before I got introduced to sushi by my wife, I always just thought, like, gross, I don't want raw fish, I don't want that. But actually, sushi is about the sushi rice, which is something that a lot of people just don't know. Okay, Google, timer off. Now we need to set another timer for 10 minutes. So what we just did was we shut off the burner and are still leaving it covered. Do not be tempted to peek underneath that lid. If you open it now, it's gonna ruin the rice. You have to let it sit that last 10 minutes to finish steaming. There it is, we got our timer going off. And now it's time for the moment of truth. Let's open this up and see how our rice looks. Beautiful, look at that. You got the nice little cloud of steam coming out, and the rice is nice and fluffy. There's no excess water or anything in there. And like I said, what we need to do now is make sure that we get it to cool off. And we do this in 2 ways. One way, we get it into the bowl and we break it apart. Now you have to be careful. You don't want to smush this rice. You don't want to crush it. What you want to do is just kind of take the spoon and just like scrape it a little bit, break it apart. If you don't want to smash down, because as you can see, it just smashes the rice and squishes it. Quickly and gently spread out our sushi rice vinegar across the top. So what I do is just kind of shake the spoon from side to side and pour it on the back of the spoon. Now I probably should have used something with an actual spout on it because this really does just kind of pour down the bowl. But now that's in there, what we want to do is we want to mix it together, but we're just going to kind of push from the bottom and flip. And what we want to do is keep it nice and fluffy like this. Now our rice is ready to be used. You can take this rice and start making sushi with it right now. This rice is done, it is fully cooked, it is fully seasoned, and it smells amazing. So I'm just gonna try a little bit of it, which I suggest you guys do as well. Oh my God. The flavor is just incredible. You get hit with so many things. You start off with a little saltiness, and you get the sweet halfway through, and then at the end you kind of finish off with that tang of that vinegar. And no matter what you put inside these rolls, any one of those profiles is really gonna shine and become the star, and that's what you want in the perfect sushi rice. That's it. That's the whole video, guys. That's how simple it was. So if you're not gonna use the rice right away, put a towel over it. That way it'll kind of hold in some of the moisture and stop it from drying out or anything like that. Now, if you guys want to see how to make sushi, check out some of my videos where I make sushi, like this one here. Anyways, that's all I have for this video. Thank you guys so much for joining me. If you like this video, let me know by hitting that like button and subscribe for more stuff like this, including some crazy rolls coming up. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time. Goodbye.